So let's talk a little bit about your North Carolina roots. You grew up here in Benson, and you went to high school here. Did you go to Broughton also?
No, I did grow up in Benson, which at the time was an hour away from Raleigh because it's before, back in the old days, it was before 40 was built. So on 50 Highway, it took an hour to get here. And I started doing plays when I was 9. And my parents would drive me an hour each way to go to play practice. And we did several shows when I was young. No, in high school, I went to South Johnston High School in Johnston County. And I continued the connection with the theaters here in the Raleigh area. Theater in the Park, Raleigh Little Theater, and then North Carolina Theater. And that happened when I was in high school. And so I was a high school student that auditioned for shows here at North Carolina Theater and was able to be on stage and in the ensemble with some Broadway stars. So I was so struck by that experience and motivated and inspired. To this day, life has taken a lot of us in many different directions. And in my casting life, I would come upon people that I was in those shows here in North Carolina Theater, that we were in shows together. And we remember, that we did that so many years ago and our relationship started here. So it was amazing to have that opportunity even as a high school student.
So what shows did you do on the North Carolina Theater stage when you were in high school?
In high school, the very first show that I did with North Carolina Theater was Jesus Christ Superstar. It was in 1986. And so it was a complete full circle moment to be able to come back and direct Superstar for North Carolina Theater last year, or a year and a half ago. That was the first one. And then I did a production of George M., Big Tap Number, and I didn't tap. And I remember Deanne Jones said to me, I was in high school, and she said, "Do you tap?" And I said, "Well," no, she said, "Getting lessons." And so I tried, and I did, and I took private lessons before rehearsal started, and then I did my best, and I was in some of the big tap numbers and some not, but it was still amazing experience as a high schooler.
And from performing, you went on to, years later, go into casting. So
Yes.
what was the catalyst that moved you from on the stage to kind of behind the scenes?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I went to one of my summers here. I went to North Carolina School of the Arts for a summer session, and that opened so many doors for me. I didn't end up going to college at School of the Arts. I went to Carnegie Mellon University instead. But that summer at School of the Arts in North Carolina led me on a path of knowing what I needed to do if I wanted to be a professional actor. The steps I needed to take. And for this North Carolina boy, I needed that. I would have never known that there was a league of professional training programs that you could audition for. And at the end of 4 years, they were going to bring us to New York City to audition for the top agents and casting directors. So I got into Carnegie Mellon, and I graduated from there with a degree in drama, musical theater, and acting. And had a great professional career as an actor. Was on a soap opera for a year. That was my first job. And then went out to LA for a while. And had some really great jobs as an actor and loved it. But as I started, I guess I got into my early 30s. I was losing my hair, which seems like a small thing, but it was something that, it just was redefining who I am and what do I want. And I knew I wanted to do something in this business, but something that felt like it was a little bit more of service, a little bit outside of just promoting myself. And so I had started directing more, and I got into casting. The way I got into it is through Tara Rubin, who I knew years before. And she had started her own company, and it was taking off so quickly. And we met for a couple of hours, and she hired me as a casting associate on the spot. So I was with her. I was her most senior employee, or had been with her the longest up until I just recently left. I was with her for 16 years. and loved that. And it felt like a big transition in some ways, but in other ways it felt like it made sense because it took a lot of my early training and it combined with teaching that I had done, a little producing that I had done, directing that I had done, and certainly the acting. And so I loved that experience.
Well, and I want to talk about Gypsy. So Gypsy was the first production I saw that you directed here at North Carolina Theater. And Gypsy is it's a classic show, but it's kind of an old-fashioned show.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to my son when we came to see it, it's an old-fashioned musical. So don't think that we're going to see Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see an old-fashioned musical. And I really feel because of the way you cast that show that it felt fresher.
Mm-hmm.
It felt newer to me. So is that kind of what we can see at in North Carolina Theater Productions going forward, is kind of
Absolutely.
that diverse?
Absolutely, because I think, you just said it. First of all, thank you, because that's what we're going for. When we do shows that have been around for years and years, why do we do them now? What do we want to say? It's not changing the great material. It's not altering things in some disrespectful way, but it's, where are we? What's the zeitgeist? Why do audiences want to see this story right now, and how do we make it relevant, and how do we bring it up to date? And I think that a way we do that is through the casting. And it's through, many times that's thinking about characters and casting them in a different way. And yes, it's fantastic to do shows that highlight groups of people. The Color Purple, The King and I, that's fantastic. But how do we take it to the next step? And I think we do that, and I'm not alone in this, we do that by questioning how things have always been done in the past. And that's what we did with Gypsy. We took many of the characters that have been played in the past by Caucasian actors, and we cast them with actors of color. And it was fantastic. And it becomes something that no one thinks about. And that's what it should be.
And I know there is a lot of discussion about how to get young people into the theater. For me, that's one way to do it. If you make the people on stage look like the people that you're hoping to get in the audience, then perhaps you will fill those seats with younger audiences, diverse audiences. Is that part of it?
It's absolutely part of it. Everyone, if there was a magic recipe to getting younger audiences into the theater and more diverse audiences, everyone is working to do that. But we have to do the things that we know how to do, and I think this is a very active step. Having people on the stage and behind the stage, but on the stage, reflect who is in the audience and who we hope to be in the audience. Because that's the message we want to put out in North Carolina Theater, that there's a place for all of us.
So you grew up here, you went away, you came back, but in the middle of kind of going away, you came back to direct several shows here at North Carolina Theater, and we'll kind of get to that. But
Yeah.
How have you seen, kind of putting on your casting lens for a second, talk about, I'm blown away by the talent here in North Carolina and the Triangle area specifically. I know you talked about on the North Carolina Theater website, watching Beth Level perform, back in Funny Girl, and
Yeah.
watching Ira David Wood perform,
Yes.
and how that kind of motivated you. How have you seen the talent grow here, and how's the theater kind of evolved since you first
Yes.
started?
Well, I think, there have been such great theater companies and theater training programs through the years to help cultivate the many people that are from here who have such great talent. That's something that has changed. There were some programs when I was young, but there are so many more, led by so many more, gifted people. And that helps get these young actors ready. And so to see that develop as a casting director in New York, I would always get excited when I would see somebody come in, or I would meet with someone in the office that was originally from North Carolina, and wanting to know, how did you get here? Who did you work with? Who do we know in common? And all of that. And there are so many incredibly talented people, Ariana DeBose, I remember when she was fresh off the bus and came and met, in the office. I first got to know her through a workshop that I did here in Raleigh. John Arthur Green, Laurel Harris. There are so many young people right now that are, these young Broadway stars. But on a local level, you don't have to be in New York or a Broadway star to be incredible. And I think we prove that time and time again. And I'm blown away by the local talent. There are so many incredible people that made choices to raise families here, have other jobs, other lives, but to continue acting. And so what's fantastic about North Carolina theater is we get to combine Broadway talent with the best of North Carolina. And it's something that, it's a message that's so important to me to drive home, because it's something that DPAC and other places can't claim. We're not really in competition with other places because we're doing something that nobody else is doing, which is on this large scale, we are bringing Broadway to North Carolina and North Carolina to Broadway, and we're making it in our own backyard. We're not just bringing these touring shows in and that go out.
Well, and that's a message that Elizabeth, if you hear Elizabeth Duran talk, her curtain talk almost before every production, she'll say it's a homegrown. I remember in The Heights, which was so fantastic.
Yes.
She stood up and she said, the sets, everything is homegrown here in North Carolina, which is exciting.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think, it's inspiring. I know that the people that we invite down from North Carolina to take a break from their Broadway shows, or that are auditioning for shows in New York, that come to North Carolina theater, they always want to come back because they love the experience here, and they're inspired by the North Carolina talent and the hospitality that is shown them here, as the North Carolina talent is so inspired by the Broadway folks. And it's incredible for us to kind of mix that together and create something new.
And you also have the Conservatory piece. So I've been very impressed in so many of your productions, and I'll kind of go back to Newsies for a minute. You had so many kids from North Carolina Theater Conservatory that were dancing and singing their hearts out in Newsies. So talk about kind of your vision for that kind of piece of the pie a little bit, and the opportunities that will present themselves for those kids in training to share the stage with Broadway actors.
Absolutely. It's something that's very close to my heart, and part of the reason that I am here, because for the first time, we have an artistic director who is living here and who is full-time. We've had some incredible artistic directors who have been able to split their time between their jobs and their lives in New York City and to come to Raleigh, for particular shows. So it's the first time someone's been able to live here and be the artistic director, and it's also the first time that the artistic director is connected in an artistic way to the conservatory. So the hope there is to have this bridge and to continue that, because as you say, in Newsies, there were incredible opportunities for young people, as there have been in many shows in the past, and we're proud of that. But moving forward, we hope to increase that. We are increasing that. In Mamma Mia, for instance, we have, I believe it's 8 conservatory students who are cast in Mamma Mia. And what started as a hope to have some additional offstage voices, because there's so much offstage singing in Mamma Mia, I saw these young people auditioning and I thought, oh my God, they're so good. And I was so inspired. And I said, instead of 4, can we have more? And instead of having them off stage, can they be on stage? So we found a way to make it work. And that's just one example. And then we're going to be doing Annie this summer, which of course is going to have opportunities for our young folks. So that's a way to bridge the conservatory students into main stage. But another way that we're doing it is approaching it from a different angle. So for our conservatory this summer, for the Master Stas show, we're going to be doing Bring It On. And I wanted to do something that would feel a little bit different, and so we're doing Bring It On, and we're going to do it in a gymnasium and turn that space into a theatrical space. So it's a little site specific, and to direct that production will be Jason Gote, who was he was an original Broadway cast member of Bring It On, and he's beloved here. He's been a part of Newsies, and he was just back in the Panto Aladdin. And he has been directing young people. He has a theater company of his own.
He's so impassioned about that. When I asked him
Yes.
that, I interviewed him for Aladdin and the Aladdin Panto production, and he was so impassioned when I said, why is it important to teach kids the theater? And
Yes.
he just lit up. So
Yes.
it's exciting.
It's so exciting. And so that's another way that we're bringing Broadway, connecting main stage and Broadway to our conservatory. And we're also bringing the choreographer from New York, who was just finished in the ensemble of Hello Dolly, and he's just in a new musical at MCC, Alice by Heart. So we're trying to stay very current in the moment and bringing some of these current Broadway folks to our conservatory to inspire them, train them, and keep that connection, that bridge between the main stage and the conservatory.
So this is a good segue into Mamma Mia.
Yep.
Because I feel like Mamma Mia is a little bit of your baby. You directed, you cast and directed Broadway, Las Vegas, the national tour
Yes.
of Mamma Mia.
So to clarify that, I didn't direct those productions. I was the casting director for Broadway and all of those different productions for, I think, about 12 years. When the show shifted to being non-equity, other casting directors were brought in. It went to a different company and all of that. But I became one of the resident associate directors on those productions in the last few years. So I was involved with the Broadway company as well as the Las Vegas company, touring companies, and then I directed one of the two companies that opened on Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, which was the whole Broadway set, Broadway costumes, and they wanted to make sure that someone who had a connection to the original production was overseeing it. And not just me, there were a lot of people that were brought in.
And you're directing the version here at North Carolina Theater, which
That's right.
opens next month.
That's right.
What is it about this musical that gives it such legs and has made it last so long?
Well,
this is such a beloved musical, and people just keep coming back and seeing it time after time.
Well, the musical is so close to my heart, and it sounds funny to say that in some ways because I'm certainly not going to act like it is deeper or more serious than it is. Mamma Mia knows what it is and sets out to do what it does and does it better than anybody. And the thing that I learned working on the show for so many years as casting director is you have to approach it with truth. And if you make fun of it or you think that it is silly, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the actors, and it doesn't work for the show, and it doesn't work for the audience. There would be certain agents that I would call, to get certain actors to come in and audition, and they would say, it's just not their thing. And I said, I respect that, but have they ever seen it? No, they just know. I said, well, could we invite them to come see the show? Could we have them come in and audition? And I can't tell you how many people came in as naysayers and then completely fell in love with it. Because there is heart to the story. And what I also learned through the years by having the opportunity to work on many of the jukebox musicals, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia just did so many things so well, and they made it look easy, and it's not easy. And I give so much credit to Katherine Johnson because the book actually, again, I'm not saying it's the deepest thing in the world, but it follows the pattern that Shakespeare set. It kind of follows this sort of whimsical idea of the comedies, and it has this Midsummer Night's Dream feel to it with all the hijinks. It's just shy of having like gender bending, like confusion, but it's got all of the young lovers, the older lovers, the couples that come together that are searching, and it's on this island, literally an island, surrounding a wedding. So that makes it work, and I think it's something that is universal, and it's a story that so many people can relate to. And again, what we were talking about earlier, it was important to the original creators, as casting director, that we have people on the stage that look like everybody who can be watching it, so that there is diversity. And through Mamma Mia and the shows at Disney Theatrical, that's where I got my feet wet with diversity in casting, because it was not only encouraged, it was expected. And I loved it. And so I didn't know how to do things any other way. And so I take such pride in that. And one of the great things about casting with Mamma Mia through the years is we didn't have to replace people in a cookie cutter way. So there could be someone who had a larger build and played the character, and then we replaced him with someone with a smaller build who was of a different race, and it was encouraged all of the time to bring in people of all different cultural, ethnic backgrounds and looks, sizes, to be cast in those roles. So again, I carry that with me.
And what did you learn from those other productions, from being involved in those other productions kind of through the years?
Mm-hmm.
Has it changed the way, has there been anything about the musical that's changed over the years for you? And what from those experiences are you kind of bringing, what did you learn from those experiences that you're bringing into this North Carolina theater production?
Yes. I think one of the things that I learned through being around Mamma Mia for so long was to give weight to the story. And if you give proper weight to the story and the truth of the storytelling, it makes the show amazing. Because the music is there. The music is going to be the music. The music is going to be great, and there's no denying that. But if the music is tied to the story-driven elements, it leaves the audience feeling so good and completely satisfied. And that's where the humor comes from. If you push for the humor in the show, it can fall flat. But if you play the truth, the humor comes out. And so those things I am bringing to this production. As you know, the shows here at North Carolina Theater are on a very accelerated rehearsal period. So we put the show together in a matter of days. So there's not time to meet with the cast once everybody arrives and do table work like you would do in different productions. So I reached out to everyone about 6 weeks before the rehearsal start, and I told them a lot of the things that we're talking about here, that it's important to dive in and do backstories and take these characters seriously and talk with each other, dream big, come up with interesting details. It will just make the experience richer for the actors, but also for the audience. And I've seen it time and time again, so I will be bringing that with us. Another thing that I learned from the show and that I'll be bringing to this production is a wide array of diversity to tell the story. So we've cast the show in a way that hopefully represents a lot of different people with a lot of different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. And that's always been important to this show, and it's important to us at North Carolina Theater. And so I really love connecting those two in the movie.
And are there any shows down the road, maybe shows you've been involved with, maybe shows you haven't been involved with yet, that you're really hoping to bring to the North Carolina theater stage, or that audiences can kind of keep their fingers crossed that they might see on the North Carolina theater stage?
You know, I wish that I could talk more about that, but we're just. I think I would be showing my hand because the shows that we are going to be bringing to our audiences for the 1920 season are shows that I am so excited about and have been on my dream list, and I think are going to be great fits for where we want to see North Carolina theater head. Having said that, I can't mention them yet.
When will the announcement comes out sometime in February?
It comes out right around Mamma Mia, so that's our plan. So we will be announcing very, very shortly. But I'm truly excited about those upcoming shows.